when as humans, we justify in human terms. We run from the total darkness of the godless world of men we create for our own peace of mind. An artificial man-made light, an image of brightness to counteract the knowledge of total wrongness in a world that has rejected its creator. We manufacture an illusion of good, so that all is not seen to be evil. We paint white that which is in essence black because it has removed itself from the source of all life and knowledge. We give the semblance of truth to that which we know to be a lie. That is the human game. When a man does wrong and knows he has done wrong, he tries to make it not so wrong by justifying it. He harms another man, feels the guilt, and then tries to reduce the burden of sin against himself by blaming another, by reducing his awareness of the extent of the harm he was done, by pleading ignorance, by insisting that he only intended good, anything to create some rightness, or illusion of rightness, to relieve the sense of total wrongness. That is the justification of men, the justification of self by self. A man-made light flickering feebly, but just perceptibly in the great void of godless darkness. And by agreement, in the world of men, they justify each other except when they must blame each other in order to justify themselves. And they alternate between combining forces in fear against the common enemy of total darkness, and fighting one another for the meager and inadequate substitutes of artificial light. A man must feel justified, even if it means the wholehearted condemnation of another man. If for him to maintain his illusion of being right, another must be shown to be wrong, then that is the goal he pursues. The world of men is the absence of God, and therefore the antipodes of heaven, which is hell. And man carries a candle in hell, so that he can pretend he is in heaven. And whenever a man feels wrong in the eyes of God, he tries to make himself right in the eyes of men. When he feels the darkness of his estrangement from God closing in upon him, he lights a candle of man-made lightness, and fights off the suffocating gloom. He justifies. Every time he makes an excuse for his actions, every time he pretends to himself that what he has done is not as bad as it really feels to him, every time he blames his shortcomings on his background, or his upbringing, or his environment, every time he blames his circumstances on his neighbors, or his employers, or the government, or the weather, every time he blames his failures or mistakes on his friends, or his enemies, or his colleagues, or his lack of education, every time he protects his good and altruistic inclinations against the knowledge of his selfishness, every time he blinds himself to the destructive consequences of his actions, every time he makes a show of goodwill which hides his inner feelings of distaste, every time he makes himself feel pity of remorse to convince himself of his virtue, every time he shifts responsibility for all the ugliness and wrong around him, he justifies. He carries a candle of illusion into the darkness of reality. For if a man can justify his state of being, if he can find just a chink of light in his world, or if not find it, then create it, then he can continue in that state of being of that world. That is what it is to justify. If we are wrong and we know without a shadow of doubt that we are wrong, then we must cease to be what we are. If what we do is evil, and we cannot escape the knowledge that it is evil, then we must stop doing it.